The story begins with the extreme collapse of the US economy, leading to the highest unemployment rates ever recorded. Additionally, crime rates have spiraled out of control, rendering the country's prison system incapable of accommodating the overwhelming number of criminals. Wealthy entrepreneurs seize this opportunity to build prisons for profit. One such facility is Terminal Prison, located on Terminal Island. The prison owner launched a live broadcast featuring inmates fighting to the death on the internet. Unfortunately, the viewers, who had paid for nearly 1 million views, grew bored and demanded more extreme entertainment. This prompted the owner of Terminal Prison to create Death Race, a deadly car race where inmates must kill each other using various weapons and shields mounted on their vehicles. An inmate who wins 5 consecutive races would be rewarded with freedom. On an unspecified day, Terminal Prison hosted a death race with only 2 cars remaining. One was driven by a masked inmate named Frankenstein and his navigator, Case, while the other was driven by Machine Gun Joe, Frank's rival. In the final lap, Frank's car's weapons and shields suddenly malfunctioned due to Joe's relentless shooting. Frank deployed the rear shield, killing Joe's navigator. However, Joe did not relent and continued to attack Frank. Realizing Joe would destroy them, Case decided to eject herself from the car using the ejector seat. As Frank was about to cross the finish line, Joe's continuous gunfire caused Frank's car to explode just as it crossed the line. A few days later, we see a man named Jensen Ames working in a steel mill. After work, Jensen learns that the steel mill is closing due to bankruptcy. Jensen and the other employees went outside to collect their wages, but the factory did not pay the full amount owed, leading to a commotion among the workers. Soon, a group of police officers arrived unexpectedly. It's unclear why the police were there, but they began firing rubber bullets at the workers. Seeing the police beating his friends, Jensen fought back and struck several officers. That night, Jensen returned home and was greeted by his grateful wife, despite Jensen bringing home little money. As they prepared to rest, their young daughter started crying. Jensen went to her room, then showered to clean the grease off his body. After showering, Jensen was shocked to find his wife dead. At the same time, a masked man attacked Jensen with gas, burning his face. The man then planted blood and a knife in Jensen's hands, framing him. The man left Jensen's house, taunting him as he went. 6 months later, Jensen is now a convict, blamed for his wife's death. He is transferred to Terminal Prison, where death race is held. There, he is photographed and bathed by Chief Guard Ulrich. After the bath, Jensen is placed in a cell with 3 inmates. Seeing their intimidating appearances, Jensen immediately fights them. The next morning, Jensen goes to the dining hall for breakfast, observed by an older man known as Coach and his 2 assistants, Gunnar and Lists. They recognize Jensen as a former undefeated illegal racer. The room suddenly falls silent as a bald man approaches Jensen's table and disrupts his meal. The bald man's boss, Pachenko, approaches Jensen and accuses him of killing his wife. Enraged, Jensen attacks Pachenko and his gang. Following the brawl, Jensen is taken to meet Claire Hennessy, the warden and prison owner. Hennessy reveals she knows about Jensen's case and his prowess as a former racer. She offers Jensen a deal to become the new Frankenstein, as the original had died critically, and no one has seen Frankenstein's face, so anyone could take his place under the mask. Frankenstein is a fan favorite and a legend, which is why Hennessy wants to continue his story to restore viewership. She promises Jensen freedom if he wins, and conveniently, Jensen only needs to win 1 race since the previous Frank had already won 4. In the garage, Jensen meets Frank's team, who turn out to be Coach and his assistants. Coach explains that each team has its own garage and doesn't help others. He also shows Jensen Hennessy's massive garage, whose purpose remains unknown. Coach then shows Jensen the car he will drive, a heavily modified Mustang V8 fastback equipped with various defenses and weapons, including a thick steel shield at the back called Tombstone. Unfortunately, the weapons and defenses are not loaded with ammunition until race day to prevent inmates from escaping. However, Coach says escaping is impossible because the prison is on an island, and the only way out is through a small bridge that would be swarmed with police and helicopters if there were any signs of a prison break. After familiarizing himself with the car, Jensen and his team chat in the prison yard, where Coach explains the race consists of 3 stages. In the first 2 stages, Jensen must eliminate as many opponents as possible, and in the 3rd stage, speed is key to reaching the finish line. Each driver is also accompanied by a female navigator from a women's prison, except for Joe, who prefers a male navigator. Coach then shows Jensen the list of participants, including Joe, 1-4K, Grim, Travis, and many others. At that moment, they see Ven returning some inmates who had worked outside the prison. Jensen notices an unusual object on one inmate's wrist, similar to what the man who killed his wife wore. Realizing the culprit is in the prison, Jensen prepares for the first stage of the race. Jensen is given Frank's outfit, mask, and even his ring to resemble the original Frankenstein. Jensen's appearance as Frank brings back all the lost viewers to Death Race. Coach instructs Jensen not to talk to other drivers as it's part of Frank's persona. At that moment, the guards bring in the navigators, including Case, which excites the viewers. Case enters the car and notes that the new Frank looks more handsome than the previous one. The first race stage begins. In this stage, the drivers' weapons are not yet activated, so they try to outrun each other for the first position. With Case's knowledge of the area, Jensen manages to take the lead after using a shortcut. As the drivers complete the first stage, Hennessy activates various traps and weapons, including trap holes that drivers must pass with all 4 wheels to obtain weapons. Once they collect various items, they start shooting each other on the track. The traps also activate deadheads, which Grim grabs, killing a driver by pushing his car into deadheads. Grim also causes Joe to fall behind by spraying oil on his car. Unfortunately, Grim is retaliated against by 1-4K, who deploys wheel mines, causing Grim's car to skid off course. Grim exits his car and is ultimately run over by Joe. Meanwhile, Jensen gets his weapon, but the machine gun jams, so Case climbs onto the car roof to fix it. After fixing the gun, they shoot at their opponents and steal a defense trap from 1-4K. However, Case informs Jensen that their defense system isn't working, making Tombstone vulnerable. Fortunately, Jensen has an idea and tells Case to sit on his lap so he can launch Case's ejector seat, filled with napalm, at 1-4K's car. Case then throws a lighter at 1-4K's car, causing it to burn. Jensen then faces Joe again, but his attention is diverted by Pachenko, who makes the same hand gesture as the man who killed his wife. Jensen pulls over, dropping to last place while Pachenko takes the lead. In this race, 3 drivers die, while 6 advance to the second stage. After the race, Coach and his team inspect Jensen's car and find the shield button works fine. Realizing Case lied, Jensen confronts Hennessy, saying he won't race again because he knows Pachenko killed his wife and that Hennessy set him up to get a new driver to replace Frank. Despite this, Hennessy denies it and shows Jensen a photo of his daughter, who is to be adopted by a couple. Hennessy threatens not to release Jensen's daughter to the adopters unless he races. With no other choice, Jensen agrees to race. While Jensen is sitting and staring at a photo of his daughter, he is approached by the coach, who explains that he is not actually an inmate anymore because 3 years ago he fulfilled the conditions for parole. However, after being released, the coach couldn't cope with the outside world, which had changed too much, and eventually chose to return to the prison to live with his friends. Additionally, the coach does not believe that Jensen killed his wife. Later in the evening, while repairing his car, Jensen sees Pachenko passing by and decides to follow him. However, upon arriving at Pachenko's workshop, Jensen is suddenly beaten by Pachenko's team. When Pachenko is about to kill Jensen, List stabs Pachenko with a pen. Jensen then takes this opportunity to grab a metal shard and stab Pachenko's men. He then starts beating Pachenko and his men. Jensen continues to beat Pachenko until Pachenko confesses that Hennessy ordered him to kill Jensen's wife, and that Ulrich was also involved in the murder. When Jensen is about to kill Pachenko, Ulrich stopped Jensen first. The next day, the second stage of the race arrives. When the race starts, Jensen deliberately drives slowly and enters a tunnel to speak privately with Case. Jensen accuses Case of sabotaging Frank's car last time. Case finally admits that she did sabotage Frank's car shield because Hennessy forced her to, promising her freedom from prison in return. However, the real goal was to make Frank lose so Hennessy could keep Frank in prison and continue making money from him. After getting the answer, Jensen speeds up and easily overtakes the other drivers. In this race, Jensen focuses on Pachenko to get his revenge. Jensen then takes the weapon cache and starts shooting at Pachenko. Not only that, but he also releases smoke, causing Pachenko to crash into a concrete barrier. Instead of continuing the race, Jensen stops his car and gets out to kill Pachenko in revenge for his wife's murder. After that, Jensen returns to the track to win the race. Realizing that Jensen will be a threat, Hennessy releases a multi-weapon tanker truck named Dreadnought that she had been building for a month. The truck quickly chases the racers and immediately kills 2 of them. Dreadnought then targets one for K by hooking his car with a chain and shooting it until it explodes, leaving only Jensen and Joe remaining. Since Dreadnought is very difficult to attack, Jensen asks List to connect his communicator to Joe's car and makes a deal with Joe to take down Dreadnought. They then sandwich the truck with their cars, and when a trap hole appears, Joe and Jensen drive over it with 2 wheels, generating the necessary MP to disable the trap. At that moment, Dreadnought hits the trap and explodes. The second stage of the race ends, and Jensen and Joe will be the only racers to reach the third stage. That night, Ulrich and Hennessy plan to kill Jensen because Hennessy fears that Jensen will kill her first. The next morning, before the race starts, Ulrich secretly plants a bomb under Jensen's car while Hennessy distracts all the inmates with a speech about humanity being their goal here. Jensen realizes that Hennessy always rigs the race to eliminate anyone who can win 5 times, which is why no one has ever won before. After the speech, Jensen makes a plan where he asks List to add a half-gallon reserve tank to his car. He then goes to Joe's workshop to ask for help against Hennessy and to escape from the prison. Hennessy then visits Jensen to give him the release papers he will receive if he wins. When Case gets into the car, she confesses that Hennessy asked her to stop Jensen if he was going to win, but Jensen ignores her and asks her to work with him. Case agrees, having already received her release papers from Hennessy. The race begins. In the middle of the race, Ulrich starts controlling the trap holes so that Jensen cannot take weapons, while Joe, who already has weapons, starts shooting at Tombstone, making Jensen decide to drop the shield. However, Joe easily dodges it because Jensen had taught him the trick. They continue to chase each other as if they are enemies. When Hennessy is about to activate a trap hole, Joe fires a rocket at it and successfully destroys the trap. Joe then launches all his rockets at Jensen, but Jensen avoids them, causing the rockets to hit a barrier and create a gap in the wall. Jensen and Joe then escape through the wall gap. Realizing that her two racers are escaping, Hennessy ends her live stream and sends all the police to chase them. Hennessy also presses the detonator for the bomb on Jensen's car, but it does not explode. It turns out that the coach and his men had removed the bomb from Jensen's car and successfully deactivated it. Joe and Jensen manage to reach the bridge while being chased by dozens of police cars. At this point, Jensen releases the reserve tank, causing an explosion and stopping the police chasing them. After crossing the bridge, Jensen and Joe take different paths to distract the helicopters. When both helicopters chase Jensen, he asks Case to take over the wheel while he gets out of the car to meet Joe. After Jensen gets out, Case heads to the dock where the two helicopters fire rockets to stop her. Case, now wearing Frankenstein's suit, gets out and allows herself to be captured by the police, while Jensen meets Joe and they escape by boarding a freight train. After the incident, Ulrich receives a gift from someone claiming to be a Death Race fan to be given to Hennessy. When Hennessy opens the gift, it turns out to be a bomb that immediately explodes, planted by the coach. 6 months later, Joe and Jensen live their new lives as mechanics in a garage in Mexico. They are then visited by a car driven by Case. Case managed to get out of prison because she had already received her release papers from Hennessy. Jensen introduces Case to his daughter, who now has a new name. And the film ends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss out on other exciting content. See you in the next video.